Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss will take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. Set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don McKeag Show, the post-snowstorm version. We are happy to join you here and have you join us every Thursday from 6 to 7. And we are televised in 13 or 14 different towns at different times. And this show will be rerun at 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, 11 o'clock on Monday nights, and 7 o'clock, I believe, on Sundays. I also have a radio show, if you like what you hear today and would like to participate, on WXTK. It's on your screen, 95.1 on Cape Cod. And I have a lot of Plymouth listeners and others in this particular area. As I always try to do in both the radio and on this show, is I can't avoid politics. That's what we talk about, but I really am here to try to just convey some of the knowledge and some of the common sense that I just have seen in my lifetime diminish, and it bothers me. It bothers me for our future generations, for our kids and grandkids. So I try to communicate things to you. Yes, I'm a conservative. I make no bones about it. I was a conservative Democrat for most of my life until I just could not abide the direction that the party had taken. I was a John F. Kennedy Democrat, proud of it, and I believed in liberal social programs, but at the same time, I expected them to be run in an acceptable fashion, and I expected people not to be allowed and encouraged to abuse programs that were meant to help, not to enable, not to give people a freebie. And that's not the case now. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or what you are. You must face the facts. We're not doing people any favors, any more than we do with our own children. Spoiled children have been around since time began. And those that are spoiled by parents who hold them not accountable for basic behaviors and then wonder why they turn out the way they do. Again, just common sense. But anyway, I always read a quote from almost 500 years ago. The year was 1526 from Martin Luther, the Martin Luther for whom Martin Luther King was named by his minister father, because he was the founder of the Reformation, which produced the Protestant religion. I always want it clear, this is not degrading the Catholic faith. There's nothing wrong with the Catholic faith. It was the people in charge of that faith. There's nothing wrong with this marvelous system that we have in our government. 1776, a group of men formed a form of government that was and has become the greatest country on earth with all its flaws. Now it's flawed not because the system is wrong, it's because the people that are running the system are wrong. Both parties. It has become a career job when it was never intended to be such. And it has become an ego trip, which it was also never intended to be. But Martin Luther once said, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. He or she must take that position because his or her conscience tells him it is right. That's what I want to just call our attention to. Each one of us has a conscience. And if we don't, we have really crossed over the line in our life and those around us. Because then our behavior usually kicks in and the knowledge of right and wrong goes out the window. Most of that, my experience, I was a teacher for 13, 14 years and loved it. I always say that. I was in the business world for the remainder of the year, in the restaurant business. And I've been on talk radio for over 20 years now on the Cape. And I have done a lot of different things that I believe is what qualifies people to have leadership positions. We no longer require that, though. Now it's I call it the frosting syndrome. What looks good on the surface, as long as it looks good, and now today, as long as they're politically correct, someone can get elected. And we're all paying a price for it. I don't care whether you're Democrats or Republicans. I just wanted to read something that I thought, this is, February is just around the corner. And I mentioned on the radio last week, these are the subtle ways in which this government and this country is being overwhelmed by minority positions. And by the way, again, let me be perfectly clear here. I am not a racist. I'm not a homophobe. But I expect behaviors and fairness for majority, too. We used to have a country where majority rules. They keep saying that we do now. We don't have a majority rule now. You look at situations everywhere, and we have minority positions that are dictating the rules of the game, period. Well, February is Black History Month. And I am glad that we have that, just as I am glad we have Martin Luther King Day. His life deserves to be remembered and celebrated. But his life was not exemplified by the recent occurrences and altogether two prominent cases in inner cities. That is not what Martin Luther King expected people to behave like when they were given freedoms. Well, the thing that bothers me and sticks in my craw, because as I said, it's another example, and I point these out, of where this country is eroding. And we're in Plymouth, where it all began. We don't have a great knowledge in our young people, in fact, people now up to their 40s, because this is how long the political correct and the minority position has been beating down history. But we have lost sight of our founding fathers. George Washington was born February 22nd. When I was a kid, there was always George Washington's birthday, and it was a holiday. Abraham Lincoln's birthday was celebrated. It was a holiday. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves from the standpoint of that war. Yet now we just have a President's Day. Martin Luther King Day, fine. Why don't we have George Washington's birthday? I keep pounding away at this because George Washington, by all accounts, the naysayers, those that were for him, those who were against him, historically, you can look it up. Every single one of them. I don't care if it was Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton, who both gave George a lot of trouble. A lot of these people gave him trouble. He didn't want his second term as president. He did it because they begged him. They said the union will dissolve if you do not, the country will dissolve if you do not hold us together. We don't have his birthday? Sorry. Not right. Just not right. But that is just part of where we're eroding in terms of our Constitution. No one, I hate to bring this up, but I'm going to. We talk about legal things and illegal, and I find it so interesting. I mean, I really do despise the press now. They are no longer a freedom of the press. They are a bias. They are in the pockets of the Democratic liberals, not the Democrats that I know and knew, and not some of you people. I hope there are some Democrats watching. They're not the moderate Democrats, and that's why I keep calling on people to please stop voting for those people just because they're Democrats. You can't. You mothers, do you like what's going on in the service if you have people in the service? You hard-working young families, do you like what your taxes are when you know how many people there are getting a free ride? But getting to this Super Bowl's coming up, by the way, and it's in Arizona, so we know they're not going to get snowed out. But I didn't talk about it on the radio, and I'm not going to now, about the inflatable footballs. But again, the insanity of this culture is to be so specific about integrity of the game and about it's illegal to have footballs that don't have 12.5 or whatever it is air. Illegal. They use that word illegal. We have people in this country, this president has just allowed 5+ million to come into this country illegally. No outrage in the press. In fact, the press supports them. Washington, D.C. is passing an article that they want to allow illegals to vote, which is by itself illegal. But a football team is held to these standards of air in the football, and that's not insanity. I have something that is humorous. We try to get a little humor. You know, tax returns are coming up. As you know, I'm sure I just got 2 W-2s in the mail, which I know you probably have done. And I'll be putting my tax things together. Even at my age, I have to pay. I don't know if you know, those of us on Social Security, I learned this, my 90-year-old mother had to pay taxes on her Social Security. Social Security people pay taxes. Do you know that, Kenny? Are you on?
I know that very well,
okay.
Donnie.
Now, for those few that might be young and listening that aren't anywhere near Social Security age, Social Security doesn't come from the government. They'd like to have you believe that. And they threaten the loss of Social Security all the time, especially the Democrats. And it's always going to be the Republicans that take it away because, of course, now remember, I'm not a Republican. I am a total independent, and I don't care much for politicians in general. So let's get that clear. Get it? Now, if you are going to pay taxes on money you've earned your whole life, it's set aside for your retirement so that when people get older, they, at 65 or 62, you take less if you go at 62 or 63. I don't know, which is it, Kenny? 62?
62, Donnie.
Yep. But it's money that you had taken out of your check. You young people, look at your check, and you have, Social Security taken out of your paycheck every week. That's your money that they're taking, and they're supposedly putting it in what happens to be the stock market. That's another thing that I love about the liberal whiners like Elizabeth Warren that don't even know about where money goes for people's retirement. And she has a huge one from Harvard who has $60 billion in endowments that are all placed with ExxonMobil, IBM, you school teachers, you police officers, all of you town employees. I've said all the time, you better hope that your town and your town treasurer, manager, has your money that's withheld from your check placed into the stock market, because that's the only way you will get a retirement. It doesn't come out of the air, and it isn't paid by the town. Kenny, you know. I can't tell you how many people don't know this. People that are older don't know this. But the point is, myself and others, I don't care how old you are, you have to pay a tax on your Social Security as if it were income. So you're taxed twice.
That's right.
Yet we have people here illegally who work under the table or don't work at all, get a check, and never pay taxes. Liberalism. And that's fair? And you're happy with that, do-gooders? Well, here's something that I had in my file, which I love. I had this a couple of years ago. I just received my tax return back from the IRS, and it puzzles me. They're questioning how many dependents I claimed. I guess it was because of my response to the question, list all dependents. I replied, well, this is 3 or 4 years ago. I replied, 12 million illegal immigrants, 3 million crackheads, 42 million unemployed people on food stamps, 2 million people in over 243 prisons, half of Mexico, and 535 persons in the U.S. House and Senate. Evidently, this was not an acceptable answer. So I keep asking them, who did I miss? Now, it's humorous, but it is right on the money. And yet people go, oh, come on. Oh, don't say that. Oh, dear. We have millions of people, millions not paying any taxes. And yet, you listen to the television, and did you ever put 2 and 2 together when you listen to these newscasters on these major networks? They're all making $250,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 minimum, plus full health care, huge retirements, to tell you that the wealthy aren't paying their fair share. Perfectly all right for the million. Now remember, we're not talking about the reason we have welfare. I have supported welfare all my life. There are many, many people deserving of welfare, and they don't abuse welfare. And that used to be the norm. It's no longer the norm. It is now an abuse, and in this state, we are one of the poorest run social program state in the entire nation. Years ago when I was down in Florida in the winters, I used to hear people all the time, can't wait to go back up to Massachusetts and collect. Not from Massachusetts, never worked in Massachusetts, they collect. I talk all these things on this show just hoping that you, listening, will do something. Will recognize, I don't care if you're fine financially. I don't care if you've got 2 homes and you go to, do you care about the future? We cannot continue down this road. Now let's look at, and again, what's wrong? I want you, parents, to ask your kids, especially the high school ones or college, what is done? Now, every single college is either closed or they spend time in class talking about Martin Luther King, which is fine. Ask how many talk in class about George Washington. And that leads me, I don't know, Kenny, if you've seen it, Sons of Liberty. Have you seen that
Yes,
series?
I have. Yes.
It's pretty well done.
Well done, yes.
And that should be required to be shown in schools. I am telling you, we have an education problem in terms of curriculum. We've had a problem back to, I could see it changing when I was teaching. And I hold it directly accountable to teachers being bored with doing their job of teaching and correcting papers. They turned it into social programs because that's what interested them. That's not what they're there for. They're there to teach fundamentals. And they're there to educate our children about the past. And it's not being done. Not by every teacher. I don't mean that. There's some very fine teachers. But the oversight is not there. And I don't care who likes it or not. It is proven. And by the way, look at this DeLeo up in Boston. I've said before, one of the things I never did that, I believe every single politician, every single political position should be term limited now. It's not working with unlimited terms. I don't care whether we lose some good ones. It's time we said to people, look, you get 2 terms or 3, and then go back out and live in the community that you were responsible for creating. Find out what it's like. But that's never going to happen because, of course, the liberal establishment, they never want anybody to say no. I told you, the town of Carver, which I'm happy to live in. It's a nice town. I went to town meeting, and they were justifying a police officer being, a town police officer being a selectman. There were people standing up. Well, it obviously happened in the first place. These are the little insidious ways that this basic fundamental flaw in our country that's growing because the media is in charge. The media does not like law and order. You can see that in Ferguson. They take the side of the crime element. They interview those supportive of the negative.
Tony?
I just heard coming in here about that. I don't know whether it was The View or one of those other women. And, I'm tough on the women's mentality. And women are watching those daytime shows. And I could not believe, I listened to the tape of that show, and these women were talking about Hernandez being hot, good looking, and that the case is weak against him. They can't find a motive. This is right on the air. And do you think that's going to be challenged by anyone in the media, Kenny?
No.
It won't be challenged a bit.
It won't.
Yes, please.
I want to back you up just a little bit. You were talking about Carver. Mm-hmm. And I recall that situation very, very well with that police officer. There was also a conservation agent.
Correct.
Who was working.
Same thing.
And what happened was you have open town meeting in Carver, and what happened was they got such of a outcry from the citizens on this particular situation that they passed a bylaw that at the end of their elected term, an employee could not be an elected official.
Correct. I was there.
You were part of it.
Yes, I was.
Yes.
And I spoke about that.
We need more laws like that.
Well, of course we do. But again, people have got to get courage. They've got to understand what the Constitution really is about. It's not this flexible thing that these people want to, they just want to be able to do what they want to do. And anytime someone they're like little children.
Yes.
I've said this before. I believe liberals came from situations, too many of them, where either they had a dominant father but they are anti-authority. Too many of them.
Yes.
And those that are listening, I'm sure you've shut off by now. But
No, they're listening.
But the point I'm making, Kenny, is that here, this woman, it's a joke, and everybody goes, no. And remember, folks, anytime you smile and laugh at something, it's because there's a core of truth in it. Yes. This woman says, they list all dependents, and she lists these people that are taking part of the money that you and I are paying for taxes and not paying their own.
Oh, I thought you wrote that email.
No, I didn't write that. Wish I had. But and I hope you see the ludicrous idiocy of all the time spent, all the haranguing, all the money paying these people on channel after channel to talk about a football game and nothing to talk about the financial and medical drain that illegal immigrants bring into this country. Illegal. Now, we're talking illegal. It is insanity. We now have diseases that were wiped out of this country for 40 years. Malaria is back. Tuberculosis is back.
Measles is back.
Ebola?
Measles.
Oh, measles is back, sure. How'd you like your child to be infected by someone? And never mind the court costs. Oh, but no hand-wring because the little children that they drop off that are automatic citizens you think is fine. And then you want them to be able to vote because you feel you're so much kinder. It's principles, not personalities. And getting back to Carver, I know both those people, both the
wonderful
police
people.
officer and the
Sarah.
Both true. It's not
Wonderful
their fault,
people.
but it's the principle of the thing, not the personality.
Right.
And some people can't get that through their heads. It's like you're hurting people, and people are standing up. Anyone should be able to run. This is the problem. That's what we got at the highest levels now. People with zero qualifications.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money. I saw a book over at the library today, Elizabeth Warren's book. I shake my head. Just like Obama wrote, 2 books?
Yep.
Before he was elected? Something about his father. Fine, write a book, but does that qualify you to be president?
Well, that makes something brings something very right to the front, right to the forefront. So when you release your book, you're going to run for president?
Yeah, that's true. I'm writing a book, folks. I'm sure it'll sell about 6 copies. Even Kenny won't buy one, right?
I'll buy one, Tony.
Anyway, again, it's... But I have a little humor here, too, now. I don't know how many are out there playing golf. I don't think anybody's going to be out there playing golf. No. But this is better than the ball that we talked about, and I did this on the radio. In my hand I hold a ball, white and dimpled, rather small. Oh, how bland it does appear, this harmless-looking little sphere. By its size I could not guess the awesome strength it does possess. But since I fell beneath its spell, I've wandered through the fires of hell. My life has not been quite the same since I chose to play this stupid game. It rules my mind for hours on end, a fortune it has made me spend. It has made me yell, curse, and cry. I hate myself and I want to die. It promises a thing called par, if I can hit it straight and far. To master such a tiny ball should not be very hard at all. But my desires the ball refuses and does exactly as it chooses. It hooks and slices, dribbles and dies, and even disappears before my eyes. Often it will have a whim to hit a tree or take a swim. With miles of grass on which to land, it finds a tiny piece of sand. Then has me offering up my soul if only it would find the hole. It's made me whimper like a pup and swear that I will give it up and take to drink to ease my sorrow, but the ball knows I'll be back tomorrow. Stand proud, you noble swingers of clubs and losers of balls. A recent study found the average golfer walks about 900 miles a year. Another study found golfers drink an average of 22 gallons of alcohol a year. That means, on average, golfers get about 41 miles to the gallon. Kind of makes you proud, almost like a hybrid. That's the only poem about a ball that we should be talking about, although I'm sure they've done a lot with the Patriots. I've just shut right down to that.
It's
And
getting
hopefully they can win this game with all this distraction. But
just to shut everybody up.
it's just, it becomes so apparent, the jealousy in the media and in the general population of other fans from other teams, because they're not even listening to the other quarterbacks except the two that were that Brunel, who was mediocre at best.
Right.
And I was very disappointed in Troy Aikman, who was, a Super Bowl winning for the Dallas Cowboys. But I mean, anyone that doesn't know that, there was, now they had a video, and evidently the person with the balls went into the room. 90 seconds, he's out. So there was not enough time at all to be doing anything, should he be doing anything to the balls.
I loved what Bob Kraft had to say when he got off the plane, and the best part of that whole speech was the "or else" on the end, because this guy just went to a bathroom, carrying these balls into a bathroom.
Yep.
A regular bathroom, not a bathroom with an air compressor.
Where anyone could walk in.
Anybody could walk in. They had video of this guy in the bathroom. He didn't do anything to these balls. And, let's just put it all back behind us and let's just move
Well, I mean,
on.
again, common sense would say, wait a minute. Even if they'd finagled a little bit, you got to play the game. And I don't mean I stick up for it, but it's just so absolutely over the top that all this, I mean, we had Benghazi where we had 4 former SEALs murdered.
Right.
And where we had the ambassador murdered and the press let it go away in a half a day.
Yes, they did.
So
Yes,
anyway.
they did.
The other thing that I was going to talk about, well, what did you feel about the, here's what I wanted to just tell you about. There was in the 40s, during the 30s and 40s, a man called Norman Thomas ran, he died in 1968, but he was the leading American socialist pacifist, and 6 times he was the presidential candidate for the Socialist Party of America. He ran, I remember him as a young man wondering what it was all about. And but that's when there was Democrats and Republicans, and then the socialists, and then there were other libertarians that ran with no chance of winning, but at least they got their stands out there. And Norman Thomas said this in 1944. One of his speeches: the American people will never knowingly adopt socialism, but under the name of liberalism, they will adopt every fragment of the socialist program until one day America will be a socialist nation without knowing how it happened. Now imagine, that's 70 years ago, over 70 now. He went on to say, I no longer need to run as a presidential candidate for the Socialist Party. The Democratic Party has adopted our platform. Now, that's 1944. World War II was just winding down. Socialism could not do the damage that it does and is doing now because the country was so tightly united. People were dying. Families were losing loved ones. Church going was at an all-time high. That's not what socialism really is in countries like the USSR. Remember, United Socialist Soviet or United Soviet Socialist Republic, which is no longer there. Socialism does not last in the long run. Because of what we're seeing now. We're seeing undermining of cut and dried laws and rules. Socialists basically eliminate religious strength within a country, which is the first bad sign of a decaying nation. So, for him to say that then was very interesting to me because the conditions were such that it was not conducive to the creation of the bad part of socialism, which is over-the-top unionism. Unions we needed. There's no question we needed unions. And unions did a good job. Now they are rapidly losing membership, except in one area, which is so frightening, and that is public employees. The reason it's frightening is because you, the taxpayer, including you, government employees, yes, you're the recipient of your union, but the strength of that union hurts all people when merit and when salaries, as they are now, have become exorbitant. I tell you, there's big money being made in teaching school now, especially at the administrative level, for the amount of time that person and the amount of responsibility of that person. I'm sorry, I know people who teach hate this. It's the truth. It is the truth. 180 days in other benefits to be making now, in many cases, 30%, they estimate, government workers, I'm not just picking on teachers and police officers either, but teachers have the shortest amount of hours per wages and have had the greatest increases in pay. And when you have people, and ask teachers that complain about what I'm saying, how come, if things are so tough, how come you can afford to not work 10 weeks in the summer? I want to know. If you're doing so poorly, how come you can retire at 53, 54, 56 once you have 30 years with 80% of your check? Pick up a little job somewhere? How come if it's so tough? And the other thing is, I just don't think it's good because I think it was never supposed to be. Government jobs were always lower pay because the taxpayer was the one paying the wage. And last but not least, when you have now commonplace property tax bills for people many of whom are retired, many of whom are living alone, have been in the same house for 40 years and want to stay there, and now their property tax is more than their mortgage was, and 70% of it goes to schools. I'm telling you, that's highway robbery. For whatever reason you want to justify it, it is wrong. And it can only happen because of the government unions. And then I ask, why is it? What's the difference between the public sector unions and the private sector unions? Only one thing: a bottom line. You can't get blood out of a stone. When the private sector, when companies like General Motors and others are on their knees ready to go out of business and losses of jobs in the thousands, that's when the unions have to knuckle down and be sensible. And if they're not sensible, or if they become still too tough, then they find the union members, say, hey, wait a minute, you're not representing me anymore. That's not what I see as being right. We have airline pilots, we have other people in the private sector who've lost 25% of their retirement benefits because of cutbacks in the industry. We don't see that in schools or towns. Why is that? Not only do we not see it, we see new construction. We see capital expenditures, and then the unions and the public employee get raises. And you just sit on your hands and let them do it. I keep bringing this up because it is serious stuff in the future. By the way, Kenny, we've got our phone number up there, but we don't. Is that phone working, or they just don't want to call?
It's working. 508-830-3971. It's been verified. It does work.
Well, that leads me up to first school finance hearing held. This was in the Beacon. I was amazed. Evidently, this was something Governor Deval Patrick did have something to do in terms of looking the state's basic school spending standard significantly understates the real cost of educating students, especially in how it accounts for special education, school employee health insurance, and technology. This was a message from legislators and municipal officials from across the North Shore during a November 17th public hearing in Danvers held by the Special State Commission established to study school finance law. Now, let's remember, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, again, the Democratic Party, and that's why they get the votes of public employees, because they got them something, and that's what they wanted to do it for. Whether it was right or not doesn't matter to the politicians. They want to get reelected, and they go out and do it. They don't care where the budget is. They don't care if it can be paid for. I've reminded you, there are pension plans in this state that are non-funded right now, and there are more that are underfunded, police officers, others. There's not enough money there. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul every minute because they keep spending. And they keep spending to get votes. It is atrocious. And now what they're finding is these towns are broke. Municipal and school officials from the area also told members of the Foundation Budget Review Commission that unfunded mandates and the way that charter schools are funded are hurting local school programs. Now, charter schools and Catholic schools, religious schools, pay teachers less. How come? Because they have a bottom line. That's why.
Right.
It's not rocket science, and you don't have to like it. You can't build a $90 million or spend like Plymouth. There's $92 million for government, for buildings, a school. They're going to build another school, and then give teachers raises, automatic. I don't care if there's step increases or not. And again, remember, ladies and gentlemen, every paycheck There is Social Security withheld, and the town has to match it. People forget that little tidbit. If you've got 3,000 employees in the town of Plymouth, say, every single one of the withholdings for Social Security has to be matched. What's the sum of that? Anybody publish that? On top of the raises. Workman's comp is based on gross payroll. Nobody talks about that, the impact on other things. Newburyport Mayor Donna Holliday told commission members that her city was struggling to provide adequate support for schools and had been forced to cut teachers and school staff and programs. The way the state funds charter schools, she said, was hurting her local schools and effectively reduces the state Chapter 70 school aid contribution to the city's $33 million school budget to less than $2 million. Amesbury Mayor Ken Gray told commission members that Chapter 70 aid was a shrinking share of school spending in his city and that unfunded mandates are a problem. Now remember, the Democrats, what I started to tell you, is the party that got it so towns don't have a say. I was a town meeting member in Barnstable for years. Well, you don't have, the people representing the town don't have a say on the school budget. They have fiscal autonomy. Raises, you know, you get a mother of 6 kids and she's on the school committee. What does she know? We had them down there. Sorry. Or somebody else runs an ice cream plant and he's on the school committee. He doesn't know anything about what's going on. And they're usually rubber stamping the superintendents. And they always know they can go out and parade the little kids, which they used to do down in the Cape. They'd parade the little girls, the cutest kids, in their patent leather shoes and their little pink skirts and doing a dance, and then the budget went right through. Police chief used to say to me, look at that. He said, now watch them fight for everything I want.
It's true.
Of course it's true.
What happens.
But you can't say that because, remember, it's about the kids. Well, why is it about the kids if the teachers can't live within the budget and then they get a raise despite that?
You know, I was thinking of something when you started talking about Social Security early on in the program and how we benefit from it because of money that was taken from our paychecks back when we were working, part of the working force. And I used to take a great sense of fulfillment out of the fact that I did my part with every paycheck, but then I always looked at the paycheck as this is what I cleared and this is what I grossed. And then, so I'm walking home with a paycheck, but I never start to think about, I got to pay my real estate taxes. What does that real estate tax pay? So it pays the things you were just talking about. Pays for the benefits. It pays for, it goes for the general fund. That money goes in all different places so that I am still paying. Even though I'm not working anymore and I'm on Social Security, I have to pay my taxes every year. My tax money goes to pay wages, pay workman's comp, pay the school budget. It goes everywhere. So you're always paying. It's sad. It's really sad because I never knew what the term fixed income was until I retired.
Tell you, well, this is why I talk the way I do. People have no idea.
No
and
idea.
What I don't like is the ones that say, well, look, we got this on the Cape. Woman whose husband dies or the husband whose wife dies, he doesn't want to sell the house, but all of a sudden he can't afford. He's on Social Security,
Right.
fixed income, and now they build schools, they give teachers raises, they give everything else. They build a police department, a brand new police station, a new fire station, and the employees get a raise. And all of a sudden his property tax, as I mentioned, is more than his mortgage was, and he can't afford it anymore.
Wasn't there a case on the Cape where the person's husband or wife had passed away and they couldn't afford the house anymore and they were evicted and put out in the street? Did I hear you tell that story one time?
Oh, and I mentioned a very nice woman I know over in Carver.
Carver,
Her
that's what it
husband
was.
had cancer for years, and they had to spend a lot of money to, they weren't covered, but some illegal can come in here and get free health care.
Yep.
And that's okay, you liberal Democrats. That's okay. Our own citizens who brought up 2 kids, now she had to lose her house because she could not keep up. Not the mortgage was slim, but they had to refinance for his illness. We're kinder to illegal people in this country, thanks to the Democratic Party, than we are to citizens working here, of both parties, of all parties. And that's perfectly okay. And I'm the mean-spirited person for speaking up about it. Well, I'll be that every single time I'm on here.
That's what I like about you, Donnie. You're outspoken.
It's about time, though, that people stood up, and that's why I go back to Martin Luther. There comes a time when your conscience tells you it's right.
That's right.
And that means that also there's a time to come when your conscience tells you the way the system is now is wrong. My mother was 92 years old before she was accepted by Mass Health because she had more than $6,000 in her account up until then. And we got people coming in here illegally, not contributing a penny, and they get health care. Ladies and gentlemen, I had people call me when I was on the morning show. I had a man, God love him, Alphonse something. He evidently listened. He's a Brazilian. And I talked about the illegals living on the islands. And hardworking, by the way. Let's get one thing straight. I wish we had half of our Americans willing to work like the illegals work, some of them. Not the criminal ones that, of course, Obama just lets come across. And so did Bush. I mean, this isn't just Obama. These liberally oriented presidents who want to be loved instead of do their job. Well, this fella calls me up, and I had mentioned about my mother. And he said, you're right, I came over here, I was illegal. And he said, my wife, we had 3 children, and Mass Health paid for them. Said it right on the air. And that's perfectly all right. It's insane. It is insane. And there's only one political party that's responsible for it. And those Democrats that think like I do, that stick with them, and just because there's a D next to their name should be ashamed of themselves. It has gotten out of control. And that's what I'm on here for. You can shut me off all you want, but you can't shut me up because it's too big a price. I go to that supermarket. I was there today, Stop and Shop. And I see these handsome young families, young women with 2 little kids shopping. And I'll sometimes get in line and just see what their food costs come to. And it's outrageous.
It is.
Now at least the gas prices are down, and you watch that bunch on Beacon Hill. They'll be adding another 20 cents, 25 cents, and the Boston Globe will be all for it.
Well, the gas prices are going back up. Of
course they're going to go back up.
And they're hoping to stabilize the prices
But
around
they will
$2.50
not.
a gallon.
And one of the reasons they're going up is because the stock market hates it, because stock is down. You see, it's all greed. It's all about money. They don't care about the general population and never will.
Right.
We don't throw them out. They're in there. They're a cancer now. And but at least they talk about, again, we've got to stop this fiscal autonomy and get town meeting to be able to say what's going to be done in treat. Why should the police department have to face a tougher grilling than the school department? The school department doesn't have to face anything.
Like when it comes to public safety, those people need to get whatever it is they need to have
Will you
to
take
keep
the
us
police
safe.
department, even in Plymouth, there's an influx in the summer.
Yes.
I don't know what it's not as, I asked, remember we had Kyle Frymouth on,
Yes.
one of my best friends. But we talked about, I asked him, I don't know what the percentage of second homeowners in Plymouth. I know years ago, before they got the expressway, it was heavier. Because I remember as a kid, Old Silver Beach, and I remember we'd go down every now and then to use one of the beaches. And then all of a sudden the shift was down at the Cape. But I mean, I've known all the police chiefs down there, and I mean, it's a nightmare for a lot of them to have the influx of people, and then the town meeting doesn't want to give them the personnel. So they used to have a lot of summer cops. Did Plymouth used to have?
Auxiliaries.
No,
Yes,
auxiliaries,
Plymouth
but they
had
used to
them.
have a lot of guys in law school, and it was good. It was a good experience for them. But again, you need the personnel, and you can't turn around and then to have schools that can't stay within a budget, so that to think that parents are accepting the fact that they have to pay for buses, and yet there'll be raises to administrators and teachers. To think that our kids, this is what I mean about it's about the kids, to think that our kids, our parents, have to pay $150 for a kid to play football, or a kid, I'm not saying Plymouth now, I don't know the specifics, I said that to Carl. But I know so many towns that that's the case, down to Barnstable now. Extracurricular are extra money for the taxpayer. And here they're paying 60 and 70% of their property tax, and their kid comes home and tells them they got to pay for the bus.
And they have to pay for band, and they have to pay for football and for hockey.
And you see the girls, you see kids out there, cheerleaders. I always stop and get my car washed every time I see kids out there washing a car, whether I need it or not. They have the ambition to go out and raise the money,
That's right.
which is good in both ways.
That's
they
right.
learn, they learn to give some. How about the teachers doing that once in a while? And some do, but not a majority. I talked to somebody just the other day. He said 10 years ago, I remember he went to a particular town. He said, I went to pick my kids up. I hadn't been there, and I see half the teachers beating the kids out the building. And that's the truth.
Donnie, I hate to tell you this because this is very interesting. You've got just a little more than 2 minutes left.
I know I have 2 minutes left, only 2 minutes more.
Now, you need to talk about...
Well, I got ranting, but...
You need to talk about YouTube.
Yes.
YouTube is doing very well for Don McKeag TV Show.
Why don't you mention that, Kenny? We
Don
are on
McKeag.
YouTube, ladies and
Go to
gentlemen.
YouTube and then type in Don McKeag TV Show. Just the way...
Don McKeag, or not just the Don McKeag Show?
You can do that. You can do that,
Yeah.
but it's just gonna get a little mixed
Well, then
up.
give me it again, because I want to make sure I know what that
It's
is.
the Don McKeag TV Show.
Okay, the Don McKeag TV Show.
TV show. It pops right up on
Right.
YouTube.
Okay.
And you want to remind people that you're on the radio every Saturday from 11
I
to
will
1.
be on at 11 to 1 on WXTK 95.1.
Fastest 2 hours in radio.
Fastest 2 hours in radio. And on Monday at 11 p.m., this show will be re-aired. Get some people that you might think would like to hear what I'm saying. Tuesday at 9 a.m., Wednesday at 1 p.m. I was wrong. It's not Sunday. And those in Carver, we do have a sharing of the shows, and they are showing this show also staggered around. So I want to thank you for listening. I hope I didn't get too riled up, because I wish I could stay more even keel, but then again, I don't apologize for it. I'm committed to informing you. I love people. I don't care what party they're in. I don't care whether they're liberals. I just am frightened at the future, because I see too many situations now that are they're not good. So God bless you. Thanks very much for listening, and hope you stay out of the snow. This is Don McKeag signing off. Thank you, Kenny Bukes, and we'll see you next week.